Well, thank you very much for being with us. We have so many questions. We will just want to jump right in. And so let me ask you both, what is the Gates Foundation doing to fight the coronavirus, and why is it such a priority for you?
Well, our foundation has a big focus on infectious diseases that, kill millions of people, primarily in developing countries. And so, our understanding about how you design a vaccine, we funded lots of new vaccines. We're a partner in Gavi, which actually buys vaccines for developing countries. And we have a lot of the expertise that's not in the private sector to pick which of these we should build factories for and how we coordinate all this activity. And so it's become a huge focus for us. And of course, the benefit of getting the vaccine, even 3 or 4 months earlier, will be very dramatic in terms of ending these awful economic effects as well as the death and disease.
Melinda, when do you think we'll see a vaccine at scale? And a two-part question, because you've also talked beautifully about the need to have an equitable distribution of a vaccine. So kind of when do you see this at scale, and what can we do to make distribution equitable?
Yeah, so I think we all believe that just seeing the various vaccine candidates that are coming through the pipeline, there are 3 that are looking quite promising, luckily. And I think we all believe that by 2021, we will have a vaccine. We're working ahead of time with the manufacturers, with the pharmaceutical companies to try and actually have manufacturing capability ready to go. So as soon as those trials are finished, the vaccine can go immediately into the manufacturing. And the whole reason we got involved in this vaccine was to make sure there's equitable distribution. The last thing you want is a bidding war between countries for this vaccine. We know there are 60 million healthcare workers around the world who are keeping everybody safe. They deserve to get this vaccine first. And from there, you want to do tiering in various countries to make sure your most vulnerable populations get it. In our country, that would be Blacks and Native Americans, people with underlying health conditions, and the elderly. And so we need to look at, as a globe, and we're involved with many European leaders and African leaders and others in Southeast Asia, to make sure there's a purchasing fund that can pull that vaccine through when it's available and get it out in wide-scale distribution.
Gosh, I have so many follow-up questions. I'll try to stay focused. So let me go back to Bill for a second. You got widespread attention for a prediction you made in 2015 about the dangers of a global pandemic, and you, sadly for the world, did predict the future. And so let me ask you to do it again. What are you concerned about now?
Well, this won't be the last pandemic that we face. Pandemics can come from natural causes, which is largely coming across from other species. A flu, for example, is still a very big risk. And so we'll have to invest in making sure that we catch the disease sooner and that we have platforms to make diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines very quickly. Very little was invested, even though there were these calls by a lot of people, including our foundation. One group that was funded, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, CEPI, we, Wellcome Trust, Norway, UK, Japan were the initial funders, and that is helping out here. So we're better off than if that hadn't happened. But, people trust government to think through these eventual bad things. This was a failure to get ready, and the cost would have been tiny compared to, say, what we spend on being ready for war. We didn't actually do the simulation to think about, okay, what about nursing homes? What about getting factories ready? What about the testing regime? In fact, the testing could have been ramped up very quickly, and a few countries that have almost avoided the epidemic entirely, like Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, they took their experience and actually prepared, and so they moved a lot faster. So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
Mhm.